So as you can see right here, I'm on Elon Musk's Twitter. This isn't just because I felt like checking Elon Musk's Twitter. This is because I'm doing research, and every day that I do research into the stuff that Elon Musk is doing, uh, it's always like I'm one step behind on trying to uncover what he's going to do next. So he recently announced the terrestrial space, terrestrial extraterrestrial, but rockets, fast speed, as well as more Mars stuff. He's still trying to sell the whole self-sustaining human permanent land on Mars, but this is Elon Musk's mum. Yeah, what I need to get back to is that I'm going to be presenting this, the Musky Way, Elon's Endgame, which is a work in progress presentation that I'm making. That it's bad luck, it always jinxes it, but I'm going to make it into a full documentary. That is with the images that I'm collecting to put into it for usage, and clips. I don't know what clips I'll be able to use from within here. I mean, these are all sort of Elon Musk interviews and talks and presentations. So he does presentations in front of people, or interviews on stages with panels or news places. So there's lots of resources that I can put together to make what I'm about to say to you and present to you here a lot cleaner, as well as, editing, transitions, not George Lucas style transitions though, with the shutter blinds or the squares going down. Introduction stage. Like, who is... Fucking hell, my phone. Who is Elon Musk? Well, if you're onto this video, you probably already know that, but the presentation that I'm going to be making is going to be more of a sort of widespread kind of to a more mainstream audience, to fucking plebs. Am I right? No, it's for people who don't watch Rick and Morty. People who have low IQs. That was a joke, just so you know. Well, Elon Musk, it says here, engineer, programmer, astrophysicist, and multi-billionaire. Basically the most powerful man alive. Because, look at that. That's a fucking resume and a half. Or a curriculum vitae. I don't know. It's impressive to me, because I can't do fucking anything near as long-term as that. Even this was a stretch for me to be able to make this presentation and collate this information, because I was doing it, by watching videos. It's not all of them here, but plenty there. It's just an all-out beast, and as with everything, check out Wikipedia, check out Reddit, check out plenty of resources to just learn more if you want. The main thing I'm getting to, which I tried to explain in my previous video, people didn't like it, but come on, you just in denial. He is going to take over the galaxy and become the emperor of the Musky Way. Well, and the reason he's going to do that is because renaming the Milky Way is the logical thing to do. He's used to hearing his name Musk, and he's used to hearing the name Milky Way, so it's not that much of a twist to twist Milky Way into Musky Way, and you can get used to that. And the way he's going to be doing it is with a autonomous fleet of intelligent machines that span the galaxy and self-expand by gathering resources, manufacturing them, and then converting them into machines that keep doing that bigger and bigger and bigger. It's exponential. And that's what a lot of the research and development that he does on Earth is in preparation for. There's also a little quote here that I've put in, which is, I would like to die on Mars, just not on impact. See, he's gonna bunker himself on Mars. People think that they're gonna be going to Mars and maybe they will as test subjects, so that Elon can figure out how safe it is for himself first, get the technology in place. Then he's gonna go there, kill all the humans probably, and then take over with his galaxy. It didn't quite explain it, but remember this. Remember this slide here. That he is the CEO, the founder, or investor of many of these companies. So the most significant ones are at the top and on the left here. The slightly less significant ones are down at the bottom here. Zip2 and PayPal. He founded. He's not in control of these, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And SolarCity is a subsidiary of Tesla. In fact, I don't even know if it is called SolarCity anymore. Hyperloop, he's barely runs that one. OpenAI, he's more of like an investor in that. Boring Company, same thing. SpaceX and Tesla, these are the big ones that he puts most of his time into, which is space travel and then batteries, electric transport, and that machinery. Very important to realize that these all work together, and I'm explaining why, roles they play. Now, of course, he did sell PayPal. Before we get into this, he did sell PayPal because at the time that was the best financial decision that he could have made. It gave him like $200 million, which he invested into his other projects, and that's the smartest thing to do. He would otherwise have just made PayPal into Earth's only bank system, and then when he had the majority of money, he could hold people hostage, basically, through that method. It's about gathering control. Infiltration, getting to be a big part of people's lives, meshing in there, and then expanding outwards once you've already planted the seed. OpenAI, once again, being the head of the curve on artificial intelligence, as in both closed AI and artificial general intelligence. From his position, being able to control every machine and computer system that we use, and having that AI be in every robot. I mean, of course, you don't need it in a lot of robots, but if you're trying to control the world, you would. And I'm talking about like those claw arms that they use for like buildings or for putting bolts into things, the stuff you see in factories. Everything having control. Neuralink, this is another one that's hard to explain, but it's just for more control, basically, to keep it simple. Tesla / SolarCity, and to some extent the Gigafactory, all linking in. I mean, everything that's technology based requires electricity, so you have the Gigafactory to produce batteries as well as machinery, using that hyper efficient manufacturing process, automated manufacturing process. You have the mainstream spread of electric vehicles across the globe, but they're all controlled by onboard computer systems that are linked to the satellite comms by SpaceX. That's another thing I get to. Starlink. The power walls in everybody's house and the charging stations on every street, the Tesla ones, meaning that there's more infiltration into the widespread infiltration, and it means that with the solar panels technology, advancing that is really important for having reliable source of power in space and planets that have light on the surface, because if there's no petroleum to burn and there's no wind in space, then solar is kind of like the futuristic, the most reliable in space. You're always going to have You're always gonna have light. You're not gonna have like wind. And I mean, you could go with like fusion and nuclear, but launching a rocket with radioactive material, launching a rocket that has radioactive matter in it, I'm pretty sure that's a missile. I'm not saying these don't, but I'm just saying that you want something that's kind of reliable and low risk. So solar gigafactory, as I explained, works on other planets once they get set up on other planets, space stations and asteroids. Produce more machines that produce machines, high speed, controlled. Boring company, ability to tunnel cheaply underground on hostile planets and to mine through planets and to mine through asteroids and natural satellites, gather resources. Boring company, people overlook this as just being like for transport in cities. No, this is so you can extract resources from across the fucking solar system and the galaxy, as well as creating underground tunnel networks for high-speed transport, which is the hyperloops. Once you get set up on a planet or having a massive space station, you want to get your resources from one end of the space station to the other using hyperloop technology, and the same on the planets. Get like for example on Mars, you want to get water from the poles to the equator using a hyperloop. It makes sense. Very very high efficiency in vacuum tunnels and places without atmospheres. That's a lot easier to achieve in space than it is on Earth. So once again, that's that. And the end game, as I've explained already, is a self-expanding exponential at an exponential rate galactic empire to take over the Milky Way by turning it into the Musky Way. Eventually being able to travel to other star systems, not having to rely on human communications because his fleet of artificial general intelligence self-expanding robots will be programmed, have decided. I don't know, let's not get into that, whether they've been programmed to do it or whether they decide to do it. That's about machine brains. Let's not get into that. Army of intelligent machines will go forth and make the galaxy great again, and in other galaxies as well, in the local group. So I've sort of broken that down because that was pretty extreme. If you weren't expecting that, pretty extreme. Success on Earth, Phase 1. Acquire wealth, gain support, innovate in core fields, and implement the technologies. Well, we're still in this phase, but he's so far into this phase now that it's very difficult to stop. And I've put links to things here for me to click on more than anything, but you can see all the resources available to check any of this. The biggest ones I found that were important to watch were the videos. But phase 1 most important step is acquire wealth. His estimated wealth, when I checked, was like $20 billion. That's quite a lot of money to be doing this stuff with. Money is power on Earth, and he needs a vast amount of money this early on to buy resources and to pay employees. The companies are expensive to start and run. Materials, employees, licenses, regulations. His initial plan with PayPal would have been to acquire the wealth through PayPal, but at the time, selling it and then gaining public support afterwards seemed like a better option, so that's how he did that. Gaining support. Now this is critical. He has a social media impact because he's got his Twitter and his Instagram, 13 million Twitter followers, and he's always going on panels and interviews and doing presentations. He does cameos in films and TV shows. He was on The Big Bang Theory, Zimbabwe, Bazinga, and plenty of films. He's in Iron Man, literally the real life Iron Man. Makes me cringe, but the real life Iron Man was in the real life Iron Man film. He dates supermodel film actresses because that's a great way to gain support. People think, wow, this guy, they either get jealous of him so they know of him, or he appears in women's magazines, or the gossip, latest news, Elon breaks up with wife, blah blah blah. It's just humanizing market saturation. But to a lot of guys, it's like, wow, this guy can pull any girl because he's rich and famous or whatever. It's important. He talks about video games, pull in the nerd demographic, just trying to appeal to as many demographics as he can through all of these means. And the support matters because essentially it's necessary to drive people's enthusiasm and their desire to help. If they're willing to help him out and willing to support him, it means that he has to put less effort into forcibly doing it. And yeah, if people feel like their desires are being fulfilled by Elon, then they won't stop him. And that's essentially what he wants. No obstacles, less obstacles, gaining support to eliminate the obstacles. People become dependent and keep funding his projects because they benefit from them. Eventually, people won't be necessary, though, and he'll kill everybody. And at some point, anyone who disagrees with him in the future will be executed. But hey, what can you do about it? The next phase, obviously, is to be innovating in core fields. Like, all of these happen simultaneously, but innovating in core fields, having the amount of wealth that he does allows him to just pursue projects that no one else really could do, or would want to do, because financially they're very risky. But he has his goal in mind. Like I said, long term, this is it. Like, machine mode mind, just go. He can fund research and development in the critical fields and just dominate the relevant industries, build his infrastructure by investing in as many different companies that work together. As I explained earlier on, all of the companies work together. You might not think that, but they are part of the, galactic takeover to make the Musky way. On here I've just put pictures so that it's easier to visualize this. You've got self-landing, but reusable rockets, self-driving electric vehicles, and AI that's better than humans. This was the OpenAI that beat the Dota 2 player Dendy. If you don't know anything about Dota 2, don't know anything about Dendy, just take my word for it. He's very good. For me, he's the best player in the world, and their OpenAI beat him. It wasn't like pre-programmed to do it. It learned by playing against itself over and over again, and it became so much better and played like a more advanced level than a pro player within the constraints of the game, not doing stuff that players couldn't do. Like having more health, for example. It had the same limitations as the player, it was just better. So AI, rockets, and smart vehicles, smart machinery. Don't think of it as a car, think of it as a machine, because the technology that goes into producing these cars can also be used in producing other things as well. So like those machines that you can't really think about, like transport vehicles, or just look at a Star Wars film. It's a bad example, but they have different robots doing different things. That's the technology there: AI, robots, and space travel. So you combine in all of these, and the other things like Hyperloop and Boring Company and the satellite link, which is what I've put a picture of here. Take over the planet with control of the most important and powerful technologies, which it's hard to disagree with. The influence, having this much influence over every aspect of our daily life, such as communication, transport, and power. And by power I mean electricity, not just power as in like dominance, which is what it ends up being, right? People who own the electricity kind of dictate what you can do. At this point, he is now the leader of Earth. Not this physical point, but at the point where this reaches that's where he hits. Another thing to think about is like how Mark Zuckerberg owns the personal details of half the planet. How many billion people use Facebook? Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, has access to everybody's details. Elon Musk doesn't even need that because he would just have control over all of the technologies within our life, not just our social media. Eventually, he probably will just own Facebook as well, just, take the cake next step. But the global Wi-Fi network means that he has access to all of the communications anyway, which goes a step above Zuckerberg, really. And with access to our transport, he controls where we go, and with access to our power, he controls our life. Phase 2, solar system. Step 1 is to send manufacturing bots and resources out to Mars, and step 2 is establish Mars base and just fully conquer the planet. So the reason Mars, I've explained, is because it explains it here. Why Mars? The entire planet is empty, unowned, so it can build anywhere and do anything. There's low gravity, low temperatures, lack of atmosphere, no oxygen, and all of these things just make it a better place to run machines. They can move faster, they don't overheat because there's the low temperature. Now, not being able to reduce the heat through air convection is a separate issue. I'm not entirely sure about the physics of that. I've not looked into it too much. Rusting, oxidization. It's closer to the oxidation. Is it oxidization or oxidation? I can't remember. Anyway, Mars is closer to the asteroid belt, and it's easier to launch from Mars than from Earth. Once again, is it easier to launch from Mars? There's less atmosphere to push on, and there's less gravity. Once again, I don't know the astrophysics of it, but it feels like it would make sense once the technology is there. If you're using thrusters, then, and you have the resources there, and you're putting your own stuff to push away from. Once you've got that momentum, maybe the initial force is harder to get to launch from Mars. I don't know. But in the upcoming years, even NASA are planning to get stuff back from Mars, so they're gonna have that already. Yeah, Mars, fill it with tunneling systems. Put it near the asteroid belt. Get some like space stations around Mars. Get some machinery going there. And yeah, the resources mainly are like water, iron, carbon dioxide, but the point is that with all the matter that's there are enough different combinations of elements that you can use different methods of machineries, refining, extraction, burning stuff that just break down the chemical compounds and then rebuild them, because there are enough elements available to be doing that on Mars. There's a lot of matter there. It is a great place to be doing it, regardless of how difficult it is to get there in the first place. Difficulty is not an issue to Elon Musk. Look at what he's already achieved. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's going to be, oh, it's hard, I'm not going to do it. No, fuck that. This guy does everything that's hard. That's why he's going to take over the galaxy, make the Musky Way. And I mean, once he's sent enough raw materials and machinery there to slowly begin to expand its field of operations, slowly unpacking and then building and unpacking and unbuilding, like bootstrapping kind of system. Smaller machines building bigger machines, which build bigger machines. the refineries and the processing plants, the manufacturing places, the transport systems, the networks of solar farms, underground hyperloop transport systems, connections being made across the planet to give supersonic. Now, once again, supersonic, this is just above the speed of sound, and say, oh, there's no sound where there's no atmosphere. Once again, does the speed of supersonicness change on Mars, or is it the same as what we'd use on Earth? Or is this just not even the right word to use? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Elon Musk's taking over. Oh yeah, so you get transport between key areas, for example, an equator, a landing site, excavations and poles, mining sites. Mars gets tapped for resources, to soils refined for metals, gases are extracted. Like I said, there's loads of elements, the ice cores, sulfur, iron, water, carbon dioxide, ammonia. There are lots of different things that you can get out of it. So you need that to be building more of your rockets, your machinery, your fuel, and your solar panels. Pictured here, manufacturing things like the Gigafactory, for example. So then you get on to phase 3, which is the self-expanding galactic empire. Expansion begins. Elon Musk, look at the kind of chair he sits in. Like, this is a guy who knows he's going to be taking over the galaxy. Yeah, and I don't know what goes on after that, but once Mars is self-sustaining and the launch site or the primary base, there are space stations orbiting Mars so that spacecraft can easily travel between the stations in the asteroid belt without ever even having to touch Mars on every trip. New rockets are launched to set up self-expanding autonomous space stations and production bases. This can be done on asteroids or any satellite body. The station itself on Mars, orbiting Mars, can become massive. There's just some random one I picked off Google. I'm not saying it would look like this. It wouldn't even have to look like this, because this station here is one that's built with artificial gravity in mind, whereas if it's just machines, you wouldn't really need to simulate that. So that's not a big issue. And then the next step, who can say? No one knows. I mean, this is as far as I've got, but he keeps making it easier and easier to predict his next move with the stuff that he releases. You can always check out the subreddits or his Twitter, because he's always bringing new stuff, and there's always news to check out when he's posting pictures of his mum, for example. I don't know, man. Crazy stuff. That's the end of my in-depth analysis on this. I don't even know if I would have time to make this into a compelling and worthwhile documentary, but there's definitely like tons and tons of hours worth of video here that I would have to watch over and over again in order to clip out the bits that I need to do it. Maybe put a soundtrack in there. I don't know. It's not worth making a documentary, because by the time I've made it, there'll be more than enough new information out there about the rockets on Mars. Well, this is the moon base, because, yeah, I didn't even mention this because it wasn't necessarily part of Elon's plan, but a moon base, lunar base. He wants to go straight to Mars, as I've highlighted here, the big reasons for that, the location-wise and stuff, but having a base on the moon couldn't hurt. I mean, he would need that. He would need to have a SpaceX base on the moon to compete and stay dominant over the US / Russian kind of space program, to stay ahead of that, because if they've got a moon base and he doesn't, they automatically have kind of like the leading edge, and he doesn't want them to have that, because otherwise he can't make the Musky way. So that's that. Thanks for watching, and make the galaxy great again, Elon.